Awesome. Welcome. So today we're going to learn about events. Specifically, we're going to dive right into how do you make them. We can, if we want to go deeper into like exactly what they are, we can do that at another time. I think it's better to start maybe with how do we actually build these things. So let's go over our lesson objectives real quick here. If I could catch my breath, I'm still winded. Holy crap. I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Calm down, Doomy.
Nope.
Let's do that real quick. Make sure I don't have any.
Did I miss the push-ups?
Yes, you did. But if you want, you can do them while we're just talking. Like you could just listen. Cool. So our lesson objectives are this. We're going to make, by the end of this lesson, we're going to make event listeners two different ways. And we're just going to deal with an on-click listener today. We're going to keep it simple. Can anybody guess when an on-click listener fires?
On click?
How did you know? Right. So an on-click listener is a thing where, guess what? You click something and something is listening. And when you click it, it fires off some code. That's it. It's all an on-click listener is. We're going to make one from inside of an HTML element. We're going to also make one from inside the JavaScript without going directly to the HTML. Then we're going to talk about these things called callbacks. Okay. And I'm going to have y'all, this is sort of, it's related to event listeners, but it's not exactly event listeners, which is, I'm going to ask y'all to explain the difference between an invoked function and just a function. Okay. So starting off, first thing, we're going to make an event on-click listener from an HTML event element, right? I want everybody to follow along, code along. I want y'all to get your hands dirty, okay? That's what we're going to do. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up a new directory. We're going to call it event1, event listeners 1. And I'm going to CD into that. And I really have to multitask here because my dog is annoying the shit out of me right now. Did I record this lesson? Anybody know if I recorded any?
You are recording.
You did.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Sweet. Great. We're going to create some files here. This is my ugly VS Code theme. I think y'all have seen it before. I had to switch computers today. My other one was being dumb. So we're going to create an index.html. We're going to make, we'll make an index.js, and we'll also make an index.css, because fuck it, we could have all those things. Now here's just a quick side note. When I type in light server, what file does it look for?
Looking for your HTML?
Yep, it's looking for the index.html. If you don't have an index.html, it'll actually fuck up your light server. So I'm going to go ahead, press the bang operator. I'm going to type in light server so we have our server running. Okay, Doomy, I got to put you away. He is being a little too annoying, and I got someone who can cuddle with him. Hang on, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Doomy, come here. Come here. Sleeping time. Sleeping time. I bet you. Sorry about that, everybody. Cool. So we've created this, and now let's see if it's loading. Looks like something's loading. Probably is good. Awesome. We're going to link out our JavaScript. So I'm going to go in here, and without doing any HTML things, I'm just going to start typing in script. And hey, guess what? Because this is VS Code, I get these cool things called Emmet abbreviations. I'm going to hit tab. It defaults to putting the cursor right in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in index, not index.js. Give that a save. Inside of here, I just want to do a console.log. We're just going to say hit. Okay. Let's say it's hit. So cool. I hit it. Great. That's what I wanted. Sweet. Well, what kind of element would y'all think I'd probably want to click? Marcos. What would be a great element to click and put a listener on?
Like a button?
Sure, we'll do a button. Awesome. So I'm going to make a button. I'm going to put the text in. It's going to say, click me. Awesome. And then, since I'm a noob and I forget things sometimes, I'm just going to look up HTML click event. Great. So I'm going to go on click event. Hey, look at that. All I got to do is say, first, the click, and then the invoked version of the function, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But for now, we're going to say on here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in click. So that's what it says there. Oh, it says on click. I'm sorry. On click. Is my screen working? Because I had internet issues before. Does everything seem smooth?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. I was just checking. So then inside of here, I can invoke something called my function. Where would my function live? Does anybody have an idea? How would I get access to my function? Where would I create that function?
JavaScript.
Yep. So we can create it in the JavaScript. And all I'm going to do is inside of here, say we'll say just make a function. Call it my function. And I'm going to say, we're going to do console.log. Congratulations. Clicked me. Awesome. Give that a save. And let's go ahead and look here and let's see what happens. It does not work. I think that could be because I don't think this is supposed to be invoked. That looked weird to me when it was invoked. Let's see what happens. No, that's not doing it. Oh, I think it's because I need a defer tag. That's all that it is. This is supposed to be like that, and I need my defer tag.
Classic.
Yep, I was right. Cool. Nice. So let's walk through what's happening here, okay? The very first thing, I tell my HTML, when I click something, invoke this function. So what does it do? It looks for this function. This function is here, and all that it does is it runs whatever code is inside of here. So whatever I put inside of here is what it's going to do. Let's say I want to change this text to something else. Let's say I want to change that text to clicked, right? In fact, what I could do is I could say const my button equals, just like before, equals document.query selector, and then button. And then I should be able to say my button.innerText equals whatever I want it to say. You clicked me. Now will you please stop? Now will you please leave me alone? Great. Give that a save and let's see if that works. Hey, it worked. Questions? I'm sure somebody has a question right now. If you're sitting there thinking to your head, how did that happen exactly? What is the order in which things fired off? I want you to say something right now.
Can you show me your JavaScript again?
Sure. So this part is something you already know how to do, right? And keep in mind, all this code, guess what? I could actually copy this code right into my console and run it from there. It's just a matter of when does it fire. So I'm going to do that there. And here, this time I'm going to say my button.innerText. I'm going to write something else. So my button.innerText equals, yay, we're learning about events. Cool. Look at that. I fired that off and it did what it did. It did the same thing. The only difference is, when do I trigger that function? That's what an event listener is. So I'm going to say this and then I'm going to have a bunch of people regurgitate it to me. I don't know how many just yet. An event listener, when an event happens, it fires off a function called the callback function. Okay? An event listener, when you hit that event, it triggers a function. Bradley, what does an event listener do?
It triggers a function
Upon what?
upon an action.
Sure. Great. I love that answer. Junior, what does an event listener do? You're muted. I thought you were taking a second to think and going like,
An event listener triggers a function.
An event listener triggers a function. Cool. What about music?
Can I repeat what Bradley said?
What? You got to say it.
An event listener triggers a function based on an action.
Great. Love it. Yeah. That's good. Awesome. Sweet. So an event listener triggers a callback function. It's not that any of y'all got that wrong. It's just that I want to, specify a little bit more carefully exactly what that function is. An event listener triggers a callback function upon being fired. This is like, I think the hardest part about them is understanding the syntax of everything. But if you understand that core concept, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Some event happens, it triggers a function. Some event happens, it triggers a function. I'm just going to leave it at that now that I said it, okay? So turns out when you're doing it from the HTML, you invoke it here like that. But the truth is, we don't really do this so much anymore. It's good to be familiar with this syntax. I would say maybe not like well practiced at this syntax, but be familiar with the syntax because it's going to come into play in React, although it's going to work a little differently in React anyways. What we're going to do instead is we're going to add an event listener from our JavaScript file. So now if I want to add an on-click event, right, what I have to do first is I have to find that object that I want to put the event listener on. In this case, I want to put it on the button, right? So if I want to put an event listener on my button, the first thing that I have to do is find the button. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say const button, and I'm actually going to stick with this right here. Actually, all I really need to do is rip this line out right here. Bam. Sweet. So now I have my button, and then in another line of code, I'm doing a thing, and the thing that I'm doing is adding an event listener. So I just say my button dot add event listener, and I'm curious if anyone's gone ahead on the material at all. What are the two arguments? Well, there's technically three arguments, but there's two arguments we're going to focus on right now. What are the two arguments that go into your event listener, add event listener function, more specifically?
String.
The name of the event.
So cool. I'm just going to do it for now. I'm going to say the name of the event. And then what's the second argument?
The callback function.
The callback function.
And then the third one can be, what was it called? A use capture.
Mm-hmm. So who could tell me what a callback function is? Tiffany, you were on a roll. You got this. What is a callback function?
It's an anonymous function that you can, how do I describe this? Like function passing in event is a callback function. And you're passing.
So let's get our definition of callback function a little bit better. Okay. So I'm going to write this down. A callback function is a function that is an argument to another function. That's all a callback function is. So this has two arguments. One of its arguments is a string, and the other argument is a function. Cool. Will, what's a callback function? Will there? Kelsey, what's a callback function?
It's a function that's an argument to another function.
Awesome. It's a function that's an argument to another function. Cool. So in this case, our name of our event is just going to be click. Let me click it. And we want to trigger. You remember how you said it had to be an anonymous function, Tiffany? Guess what? It doesn't have to be anonymous, actually. It could be a named function. So right here, you see how I have this function called my function? Well, let's see if it still works. Bam. Hey, look, it says, congratulations, you clicked me. And it even changed this text to, you clicked me, now please leave me alone. So let's talk about this for a second. This is a function. Let me ask a question. Is this a function? Whoops. Is that a function right here? Does all of this, if I were to highlight all of this, does that equivalent to a function?
Isn't it an invoked function?
What is an invoked function?
A function that's action's been taken? I don't know.
Is it,
I think that's a great definition. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
I just know that if you logged that, you would get whatever the function produces. Like,
Great.
you wouldn't get the.
That is the best way I think to think about this. When you invoke a function, this argument becomes whatever my function returns. So in this case, I'm not returning anything. So what this would read as would be my button.add event listener, and then you're saying on click, run this function, except for this function actually evaluates to undefined. Let's pop into, I'm going to go in here. I am just going to type in node just to get a little bit of a playground going. Okay. So I type in node. I'm going to write a function. I'm going to say my function. I'm going to put it all in one line, or a function. I'll just call it a function. Right. And then I have to use the function keyword.
Wait, so you have to, on line 4, you have to invoke the function, or you can't just write solely my function?
I
You
think we
can't
say
invoke
no
the
have
function.
to.
You cannot invoke the function. Here, I'll give this a save and prove it to you. I'm going to click this and watch what happens. Nothing. Why? Because this is not a function. It doesn't know what to run. It's trying to run undefined. Does that make sense? Because this evaluates to undefined. Let's take a look at what this, I just wrote a function inside of node, right? If I type in a function, which is the function I just wrote, and I press enter, its data type that it displays is a function, and that function is called a function, right? If I invoke that, it becomes undefined because I haven't specified anything in its return. So let's go ahead and do a function. And let's actually make another function. So I'm just going to call it function, another function. And this time it's just going to do return hello. Cool. It might be weird seeing all that in one line, but hopefully this will drive the point home. This is a super important concept, and it makes event listeners so much easier. So I'm in here, and now if I type in another function, well, it's just another function. It's the name of that function, and that's what it's referencing. If I invoke another function, it just becomes the return value, which is hello in this case. Does anybody have any questions about that? This is a super important concept to try and think about in the back of your mind while you're making these event listeners, because it's going to help you clean up your JavaScript code so much. Any questions?
John, so I'm just trying to wrestle with that idea. If we invoke that they're in line 4, we're not telling what work to perform after the click. We're just saying hello. Is that right?
The way that I would think about it is this. Add event listener has a blueprint on how it works. Its blueprint says, first, tell me which event you want to use. Then tell me the function that you want to run, right? So first, tell me the event that you want to use. So this is pretty simple. Okay, I'm just choosing it by name. So click, that means somewhere under the hood, it's asking itself, what is a click event? Okay, cool. That click event fired. So now I gotta invoke whatever is the second argument. But the problem is if I invoke the second argument right here, and then it says, oh, I have to invoke this whole, everything I put in the argument, when everything I put in that argument actually evaluates to undefined, it doesn't plug in anything. Does that make sense? Johnny, say
Yeah,
it
that
back
makes
to
sense.
me. Explain
That makes
to me-
sense. That
explain
makes
it
sense
back
to me. All right. Give me a second. I just need to digest
okay.
what you said. All right. So after the click event, if you invoke the function, it will essentially display an undefined value, or in this example, it would be hello, as opposed to
It actually wouldn't be hello. I'm not returning hello here. It'd be undefined. I don't have a return statement.
Okay. All right.
If
So
I
you're
were to
just
use this function, it would be hello.
got it.
Sorry. Keep going.
So you're really not performing any work after your event. You're just passing in undefined as a string.
Exactly. Because the way that the event listener would read it is like this. It would just wind up equaling that. Awesome. All right. Anybody else have any confusion here? Because this is a super important concept. If you could drill this down early, it's going to put you in good shape to do other stuff.
So would you ever invoke anything in that spot?
Only if it returns a function. For now, let's just say no. You could make a function that returns another function. So, but it would have to explicitly return a function. Don't worry about that right now. I think for now, you can get very used to saying, okay, syntactically, I'm going to be putting something in like this, and it's not going to be invoked. And then if you don't fully understand the reason, that's okay. But try to be thinking about the fact that this is a callback function. It's not whatever your callback function returns. And if you can conceptualize that, the other harder concepts will, they'll explain themselves to you because you'll get so used to it. Awesome. So now we're saying on click, I want to invoke this function, right? Sweet. Then all you do is the shit that you already know how to do, which is create, manipulate, append. That's it. And the truth is that that's pretty much all you have to know as far as like the order in which event listeners fire, like, and how that works. Cool. So let's go to our objectives and see where we're at. And I'm going to try and give y'all an assignment.
Hey, John, can you go back to your HTML file for me, please? For some reason, I'm getting an error on my server.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, it wasn't letting me change the name of the button when we tried to manipulate it in.
Did you have the defer tag in there?
Yeah.
We can link up after, if that's cool.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I have to go for a run during lunch, but after that, after lunch, or what time is my other lesson? I think it's at 3. Yeah, I got time after lunch. Cool. Awesome. And plus, I'm gonna give y'all an assignment to do now, anyways. So you're gonna be working together with someone. But before I give y'all an assignment, there's one more thing I want to go over. Right now, inside of my index.js, this function has a name. But I know y'all have seen the syntax that looks like this. This is called an anonymous function. Okay? So all that this is a function without a name. That's it. It's a function that does not have a name. Tiffany, what's an anonymous function?
It's a function that is an argument to another function.
That's a callback function.
I'm sorry. Anonymous function is one without a name, and it isn't. You don't write a declaration for it separately.
Mm-hmm. Rodney, what's an anonymous function?
It's a function without a name.
Paige, what's a callback function?
Function that's an argument to another function.
Jack, what is a anonymous function?
Function without a name.
So I want to prove to you that this is a function right here. And all I need to do to prove it to you is hop into Node here. And I'm just going to literally press enter on that. And guess what? It says function. That's how I know it's a function. I could prove that that's a function. And also, let me make one that's a little more complicated, okay? I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe I'll input name. And then I want to return name, right? So now, guess what? I could take all of this and wrap it in parentheses, and it's going to work just like a function. Actually, I'm going to do number. We're going to say number, and then I'm going to do return number plus 2. And watch. So this right now evaluates to a function, but guess what? Since I have all this wrapped in parentheses, I can invoke this with 2, and hey, look at that. It actually plugged it in. So it actually ran code on what I just wrote based off of an argument that I passed in. Does that make sense? Why? Because an anonymous function is just a function without a name. The other syntax for writing this is like this. So you will see this online sometimes. Oh, it doesn't always. I don't know that this works in Node, but I think it works on some compilers and some it doesn't. But you will sometimes see anonymous functions written out this way. I think that might have been an old way of doing it. This new way is actually a part of, like, anytime you see that fat arrow, that's a part of ES 2015. So,
John, on that first one, do you need a return? Is that not a single line arrow function?
you're right. I just didn't want to confuse.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I just wanted to make
You
sure.
put the return there. That could be another lesson. If y'all want ES 2015 stuff, it's gonna make this stuff make a lot more sense. I'm just not gonna go into it right now, but it helps put some of these pieces together. But cool. So now, I mean, I could go over this real quick. An ES15, there's like these fat arrow functions, and what Jack was talking about is if I have a single line, I can return the argument here. So like, let's say I have name or number, and I want to return number times 2. This is the same as putting curly brackets around it and throwing a return statement in there. It's just JavaScript's way of an implicit return. But let's not stress too much about that right now. I think the biggest thing to get is we want to understand this. So what I want everybody to do is I'm going to put everybody in groups, and I want y'all to make a button, and when you click the button turns red, and when you click it again, it turns white. Cool. I'm going to put everybody in breakout rooms. Would you rather raise your hand if you want, or put up a number if you want 2 people in your groups or 3 people in your groups? 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, I'm gonna try doing groups of 3. Except for Jack, I'm putting him all by himself. No, I'm just kidding.
Not a new experience for me.
It's the last experience, Jack.
2 to 3, 3 to 4. 14. La, la, la. I'm gonna do 2 to 3 per room. So some of y'all are gonna have 2.
John, what were the colors again?
Doesn't matter. As long as you can choose whatever colors you want, as long as you can get the event listener part working, get it working. That's the first goal. All right. Oh, I made like a cool sound effect and didn't open the rooms. So that felt like a mistimed sound effect. What am I going to first? Let's see. Wait a couple minutes. Okay, let's join a group.
John, I'm glad you're here. So I don't know how to change the color after you click it.
Well, what changes the color of something?
CSS.
Yep. And how can you make a CSS selector?
Oh, for button.
So I'll give you a little bit of a cheat. You basically, what I would do is you're not actually changing the CSS to do this. You're creating 2 different classes. Maybe you have a .red and a .black or something like that class. And you're doing selectors on those class and you're saying if it has a class of .red, then make it red. If it has a class of .black, make it black. And then you change the class name with the JavaScript. Does that make sense?
No.
So on the click, the function that you're calling changes the class name.
Yep. It changes the class name. And then because you've changed the class
And
name,
then
you've changed the way that the CSS affects it. I think Paige has it. I'm going to let y'all work through it. I think you got this.
All right, cool.
okay.
All right, I'm going to check on other people.
So Paige, we have to give
So
like an ID.
So, what up, John?
Aloha. Do y'all have
Oh man.
Do y'all have a good idea of how you want to approach this?
We sure do.
How are you going to change the color?
Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet. We landed on 2 different event listeners and then 2 different functions, and then we will talk about how we're going to style it differently.
Cool.
Should the second one event listener be double click?
What?
Yeah.
I think it's just like DBL.
I did not know there was a double click.
It's a DBL.
I was not intending on doing a double click. The goal would be you click it once, and then depending on, you know, is it red? If it's red, then it should default to switching it back to black. It should not be that you're triggering two different functions. The same function should handle it differently.
So you're saying the same like change color function should be red and white?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Like, it would be something like that. In
sort of.
pseudocode.
I think you could figure out maybe the right thing to do there, but it seems like you're on the right track of how you're building your logic out. Have you thought about how you're actually going to change the color? Which of your three files there, index.html, index.css, and index.js, which one is going to control the color?
The CSS.
Yes.
Okay, and how do you control the color of something? Like, how do you select what you want to change color of?
Can we give an event a ID?
You can, but why would you?
We give the button an ID.
You can give the button an ID, but I think that you actually don't need to.
We could just work on the button.
I'm going to give y'all a little bit of a cheat, and I'm going to tell y'all kind of a strategy, okay? The strategy is this. You are going to change the class name of the button. You can give the button a class name of red, and if it has a class name of red, you can use a CSS selector, call it .red, and then change the color to red. And then you're not doing it in there, right? You're not doing class name in your HTML. You have to do it in your JavaScript. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're switching your class name from your JavaScript, and then your CSS is automatically applying styling to it depending on what its class name is.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Cool. I'm going to go and hop into some more groups because I don't think that that's super intuitive to y'all, which is okay. I didn't know where y'all were at. Let's see. Deuce.
I'm going to just paste it in the chat.
All right. So do y'all have an idea on how you're going to do this?
I had a similar problem with Rodney, so Katie was helping me get it to work here.
Cool.
But basically our question is, like, initially we had our HTML like this, right? But since we linked our JavaScript file, we don't need this, correct?
Right.
Okay.
You'd be
And
doubling
so-
up on your on clicks.
Okay. So this is kind of a mess right now. But let's see, I select the button and then let's see, like I invoke it here, but it doesn't show up, it doesn't work. But this is something too.
Where is my button? It's saying unexpected end of input on line 22. That could have something to do with it.
Okay, this is what I was getting. So like I can select the button up here, and then I log that, and then
What happens when you click it? You didn't click it yet. Okay, nothing. So you have your button there. So you said const my button equals that. And then where are you adding your event listener?
it's
My button dot add event listener. What is the name of the event?
I thought that was just, I
Nope.
guess I thought that could be.
I was writing name of your event because it's supposed to be like the name of the event that you're choosing.
Oh,
case, it
so it's
would
like
be
what we
a
wrote in the HTML. It's like this, like that thing, right?
Right. So except for when you're doing it from your event listener, you're not. For when you're doing it from your JavaScript, you're actually typing out the word click. But I would get rid of that on click there. But so now you're gonna write click, all lowercase inside of that
Okay, no quotes or quotes?
quotes. Cool. Now let's see what it does. Did you save it?
There we go.
There you go.
Cool.
Now, how are you going to change the color?
We were thinking we could just go like, we could add something to this function where it's like my button dot background color.
So it's dot style dot background color, no spaces, but capital C in color. I don't know if that matters, but and then
Something that I
equal.
would do, that method works, but I want you to try something else because I think it's more standard. Use
Okay.
your CSS. So first of all, make sure you
Okay.
link your CSS. And the way that you would use it is by changing the class name of the button. So maybe you could change the button from being a red button to a blue button or something like that. And you're changing the class name on it, and then your CSS handles doing that. Do you think you could manage that?
Yeah.
That's a more standard way of doing it.
Okay.
It's not that the other way doesn't work. It's that I think that this becomes more manageable with a larger project.
Yep.
Cool.
You're right,
Cool.
though, that
Read
you
that.
could do it that way. That would work. Cool. I'm going to go harass some other people.
All right, thanks, John.
Peace.
Okay. So let's link the style sheet here.
Aloha.
Hey.
So do y'all have an idea of how you're going to change your styling?
I have an idea, but it's a simpler solution, and I want to figure out the harder way to do it.
What is the simpler solution?
Put a second event on mousing off of the button.
Oh yeah,
That's way like I said, that's simpler. But I want to
Yes.
do it where on 2 clicks.
I'm gonna tip y'all off on how to do this right. What file do you have that controls the styling on elements on your page?
It's going to be your CSS.
Right. And how do you control what the CSS actually affects the styling of?
In the CSS file?
Right, exactly. It's just whatever it selects, right?
Right, selector.
So what if you change the class name of the button? What if you change the class name from being red?
Oh, cool.
You get the idea?
Cool.
I think Jack's got it. I'm gonna leave
Jack
it.
does got it. Jack, do you want to share your screen?
All right. So he is intimating.
I think you got this. I'm leaving.
Cool, bro.
Aloha. So how are y'all gonna change the style of your button? How are y'all gonna change it from red? Oh, you already have a method. Look at that. I would actually do it a different way. You can do it that way, but what I think is the more standard approach would be controlling it from your CSS. So there you're kind of manipulating like the color via a style tag, but I think what's actually maybe like a better way of doing it, it's just the way that I see done more often, is you can go to your CSS and you can create like a red class and a blue class or something like that. And then you change the class of your button to be either red or blue, depending on what its class is. Does that make sense?
So you need 2 classes on one button, like in our.
Yep. Well, it's no, like you'll have one class at a time. You'll switch out that class depending on whether or not. So if the button's red, switch the class to blue. If the button's blue, switch the class to red. Or you can use different colors. I don't care. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah.
Like dot red curly in your CSS file.
Yep, exactly.
Dot red, and then background color is red.
Yep. Not camel case. You could also do your autocomplete a lot more.
Yeah.
And then you do like a dot, I don't know, dot black, dot blue, whatever you want the other one to be. And then guess what? If you can change your class name of your element, then that's all you need to do from the JavaScript, and the CSS will take care of the rest.
So would we do like a class list type of
Yeah,
thing?
so there's a few ways you could do that. That's a JavaScripty problem. What I would just do for now is use class name, do like dot class name, and that just means that your element is restricted to only having one class. if you do dot class name. So you say dot class name equals blah, 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 dot class name equals blah, 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 blah. That's how I would do that. But in reality, what you would do is you would delete it from its class list and then append it to the class list. I'll work that in an example in it. Well, I don't know. I might just let y'all finish out this lesson by doing what you do there. I'm actually gonna get water real quick, but I think y'all got this. I'll be back. Let's see. I gotta close out of some stuff. Boom, 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 boom. And I don't know when everyone's gonna be back. How long does that take? Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can do this one real quick in like 5 minutes. I think I might be able to make time. If people get their ass back in here. I'm just kidding.
If we talk about events again at all in a lesson, John, any way we could like talk about key press stuff too?
Sure. I haven't really used that stuff that much, to be honest, but it's literally just choose your event and it works the exact same way. It just fires at a different time. So if it's an on key press, right, then that means when you press a key, it fires the event. So a really good way to check when it's firing is to just do a console.log, like console.log.
It does differentiate between when you press the key down and you let the key up, though, right? Those are two distinct different things, right?
Different things. We'll deal with that on another day, but I think that's really something you could mess around with yourself and learn a lot from. But okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and speed code this really quick, and then I'm gonna fire some questions at y'all. So what I'm gonna do here is on my button, what I want to do is I want to be able to change its class from wow, my shit is running slow. Shit. Hang on a second. I gotta close out of some stuff. Both of my computers are running slow as hell today. I don't know why, but it is a pain in the butt. Oh yeah, I think this.
Don't pull a Damon on us, John.
Yeah, I think I'm about to lose connection is what it's looking like. Let's see. Well, I can't even open my code. I can't code anything here.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So,
Do you want one of us to share our screen and then you could tell us what to write?
the problem is it might crash either way. Do y'all have like a break in classes at any point today? Let's see.
3 o'clock, I think.
Oh, it's writing now. Just really slowly. Oh God. I teach a lesson at 3, so that's not gonna work, unfortunately. Maybe if I stop. Oh Oh God.
There are no lessons at 3.
Oh, I thought I taught a lesson at 3. Is it at 1? Maybe it's at 1. I can't remember. All right, it's working now. Cool. So what I'm going to say is, when I do this, I am going to say if my button dot class name is equal to red, switch it to black. Else, I don't know, switch it to, I'll do red and blue. Else, switch it to, so if it's red, switch it to black, right? So I'm going to say my button dot class name equals blue, else my button dot class name equals red. Now, to be fair, it's better to use class list instead of class name, because in reality, you could have multiple classes on the same element. Let's just see if this is working right. So if I go to my localhost,
You spelled, you changed the spelling of listener, I think.
Wow.
Add event. Blah, 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 blah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Cool. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm looking at this element, right? We want to look at the button. Cool. So this button right now doesn't have a class name. Cool. Starting out red, and then I click it again, and it goes blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. It's doing exactly what I want there. Now all I would need to do is link out a style sheet. So I could just go ahead and do, what is it? Oh, is it link? CSS. And then now I'm going to call it index.css. I'm going to go to my index.css. I'm going to make a .red class, and I'm going to say that its background color equals red. Red, and then we'll do a blue, and we are going to say .blue. Background color, oh, whoops, background color is going to be blue. Sweet. Let's see if it works. Hey, looks like a police siren or something. Cool. So now I'm sure y'all could get this to work if you work on it by yourselves. I'm going to fire back the theoretical questions at you before we go. So let's see.
Do your JS one more time. Sorry.
Sure. All right. Marcos, what's an anonymous function?
That's a function without a name.
Tiffany, how would you change the colors of an element the John way?
With a class name and setting your CSS classes to a color.
Cool. Music, what's a callback function?
Sorry, I had to find my Zoom. A callback function is a function that is an argument to another function.
Nice. Jack, what's an anonymous function?
Function without a name.
Katie, how would you what would you do to change the color of an element in using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS? What would your approach be?
To make a CSS class and add the class in the event listener.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Paige, what's an anonymous function?
A function without a name.
William, what's a callback function?
A callback function is an argument that is passed into another function.
Okay. What's the difference between an invoked function and a function, Rodney?
An invoked function returns the value of the previous function.
What is just a regular function?
All the work that's inside it that doesn't return anything. It's just a function itself.
Awesome. Love it. What else? Who else? Did I miss anybody? I know if I did, you're not going to volunteer. I think I missed Bradley. What is? I see you. I see you thought you could get away with it, and I miss John and Jason. Yeah, yeah. You're not getting away so easily. What's an anonymous function, Bradley?
A name with zero. Sorry, a function with no name. Sorry.
Cool. Kelsey didn't say anything either. I didn't ask her a question. What's a callback function?
A callback function is a function that's an argument to another function.
Eric, what's an anonymous function?
Function without a name.
Jason, what's a callback function? Actually, Jason, what's the difference between an invoked function and a not invoked function?
A non-invoked function is just the entire function. Invoked function is the return value of whatever the function is.
And I think last but not least, we have Johnny. No, I didn't call on Junior yet. I didn't call on Junior. Junior, how would you change the styling of an element?
Set its name to a class.
Nice. And then in your CSS, change it. Cool. I can't remember if I got Marcos, but I think I did. I can't tell if you're making a lying face right now, but either way, I'm letting you slide. But I definitely know I didn't get Johnny. Johnny, what is a callback function?
A callback function is a function that is an argument to another function.
Nice. Now, like, obviously, like, just memorizing these terms is not going to, like, make you a better coder, but try to think about them a little bit while you're coding. So that way, you know, when you're debugging your shit, see if you could put it in terms of, like, these things that I'm cramming down your throat, because you'll find that it will probably help you think a little bit cleaner about the code. And yeah, cool. That's all I got for event listeners today. Good job, everybody. Have a good lunch.
All right. Appreciate it, John.
Thanks,
Later.
John.
Thank you.
Thanks.